Tweets and status updates do you read in an hour? Is your inbox exploding with emails, most of which don't even apply to you or your job? Well, today's world can be stressful as many of us battle information overload on a daily basis. So is there a better way to get through it all? Well, joining us in studio now, Nick Bontis, the author of a new book, Information Bombardment, in which he talks about the pressures of living in an instant message world and how to better organize it. Especially when you've got all this anxiety and what, should I answer the phone and should I not answer it? Nick, most of us have a device that rings or beeps or buzzes almost constantly. Should we be expected to respond or reply immediately?
I don't think you should, because if you do respond right away, then what you're doing is sending a signal out saying that I will respond automatically. And think of the job of a professor, for example. If a student sends a professor an email at 2:05 in the morning and responds at 2:06, guess what? 2,000 more students are going to do the exact same thing.
Is that what happened to you?
Oh, yeah, it happens to me all the time.
So you've learned from your mistakes in this world where and here, another question, and this is a problem I had before even the information technology took off. If you're meeting someone face-to-face, you've made an arrangement either for a job interview or a personal interview with someone in their office, and their phone rings, should they be allowed to, or is it rude to, answer that telephone while they're talking face-to-face with someone? Because this occurs almost all the time, especially now with your device going off. What's the proper etiquette for something like that?
Well, the proper etiquette, of course, is to shut everything off. This is one thing that we always forget, Mark. Blackberries, iPhones, every single one of these things have an off button. What we got to do is learn how to use them. Now, what we also find in research is that when you do turn them off, or when you remove yourself from your phone for a prolonged period of time, you suffer from what are called phantom vibrations, of course. This is the anxiety that you feel that you've been away for too long. It happens when you're on vacation sometimes. But absolutely, when you're face-to-face with somebody, old school rapport. Look them into the eyes, develop a nice social connection with the individual, and make sure that smartphone does not ring at all.
Yeah, old school if you used to do that. But how many young people especially have ever been engaged in a face-to-face conversation and so involved in that conversation that any buzzing, beeping, phone ringing doesn't affect them at all?
So this is where parents have to come into play in a strong way. Of course, I encourage my kids to get outside if we ever have any half-decent weather here. But it's very, very important because a lot of them lock themselves up in the basement. They turn on those multiplayer online games, and they're playing these shoot-'em-up war games against, other kids in Singapore and Tokyo that they've never met before. They're getting lethargic. They're getting overweight. What we've got to do as parents, of course, is get them out of the house, just like our parents used to do, and say, hey, be home before the lights turn on. Those are the old school rules. They still work today.
Okay, a lot of people have a device that their employer gave them. Does that give the employer the right to expect that employee to be available at their beck and call anytime they get in touch with them on that device?
The answer is absolutely not. So what we're finding in research is that most office workers are getting approximately 84 emails in a 24-hour period, and of those 84, 8 are useful, about 10%. 70 of them are just junk. CC, BCC, CYA, guy from Nigeria wanting money, so on and so forth. There are rules now that a lot of organizations, for example, some government offices in Quebec have just implemented this in the last couple of weeks, where you cannot send an email at all between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. That's kind of like a dead zone, so that the expectation is that you're not sitting there at home at the dinner table trying to check your BlackBerry.
Yeah, in the meantime, it's all great, but but when your boss says, look, I don't care, you work here, that's our device, and if I need to get in touch with you at 8 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning because it's really important as far as I'm concerned, then I'm going to.
So that goes down to the interrelationships between you and your supervisor. If you do have a supervisor or you have the type of cultural environment where you need to get access 24/7, well, then guess what? You have a choice to make. You knew that going in, and if you didn't know that going in, you should have known it. And you know what? In most organizations, that's what's happening. But there's got to be some sort of reasonable expectation. I think it's reasonable to send an email, perhaps on the weekend or perhaps while you're on vacation, but I don't think it's reasonable to be expecting that I respond between midnight and 6 in the morning.
Good advice from Nick Bontis. The book is called Information Bombardment, informationbombardment.ca, Nick?
No, informationbombardment.com.
.com.
That's right.
Perfect. Nick, good luck with the book, and fantastic advice, because we all have these devices, and sometimes we just don't know what to do with them. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.